I was born in 1942, in the winter of 1942, right smack in the middle of the war.
Yeah.
And my early life, when I was a baby, I was evacuated to Glasgow with my mother. My father was in the police force, the war police. And I spent some time up there. Don't remember any of it, but that's as I've been informed. And then latterly we moved back down to Staplehurst, where I actually grew up. And my earliest recollection is some of the planes coming over when I was 3 or 4 years old in the war. It wasn't a particularly nice memory, but you weren't terrified like you would be as an adult. You tended to be more inquisitive.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the early part, and then things became quite austere after the war. We didn't own a motor car, for example, or anything like that. We lived in a house with the toilet was built into the house, but the door of the toilet was on the outside of the house. So you used to have to go through the kitchen, outside, round the corner, and back into the toilet, which was next door to the coal shed.
Yeah.
And when we had a bath, for example, as well, the bath was a tin bath that hung on the wall. And we took it off the wall and we took it into the dining room and we stuck it in front of the fire, particularly in the winter. And we had a big copper in the kitchen, which was wood-fired, and it was brick and built in as a sort of half a octagonal thing. And used to boil the water all up, and they used to bucket it all into the dining room and fill up the bath.
Yeah.
And then we bathed according to our sizes. So my little brother got in first and had his bath, then I got in and had my bath, then my mother got in and had her bath, then my dad got in and had his bath. And that's the way it went.
Yeah.
And our big treat on a Saturday night then, and this will horrify most modern kids, was a big bowl of spinach covered in butter, all cooked up. And we used to sit there and enjoy it on Saturday night, listening to the radio, which was a battery radio with gas lights. We didn't have electricity.
Wow.
Now, that was in my early years. By the time I'd got to 12, we had got electricity, and we, felt quite modern for us.
Yeah.
We still didn't own a motor car or anything like that. And anywhere we went, we'd go on the bus or the train. So our exciting summer holiday would be a day down at Folkestone from Staplehurst on the train. And that's how it was in those days. It was very austere after the war. It was particularly for us.
Yeah.
And then latterly, as I got older, we had such a thing in those days, educationally, we had the 11 plus, as it was called then. I don't know anything about what education today is.
I think the 11 plus is still around, I think.
Is it really?
I think so.
Okay. From that, you won a scholarship to the grammar school. And if you didn't get to the grammar school, then you carried on with secondary education. And then 12 and 13, you had a second chance to win a scholarship to the technical school. So my education consisted of going to the Staplehurst Primary School. I failed the 11 plus, but I actually passed the next exam for the technical school. So at 13, I went to Maidstone Tech and studied engineering. During all this time, from the time I was about 7 to 12 or 13, my interest was animals.
Yeah.
But in those days, we were very much encouraged to find a career. Animals were just basics, farm work or whatever. We were encouraged to move on, and being reasonably bright, studied engineering for several years. The technical school at 16, coming 17, my family's line was police force.
Yeah.
So I was expected to become a police officer. So at 17, I became a police cadet.
Wow.
So I didn't follow the engineering at that point. I'd got to a certain point in engineering. Then at 17, I joined the police cadets.
Yeah.
I was in the police cadets for a year or a year or so. Then I joined the regular police force, where my predominance was on the sporting side. Although I did police work because you had to, I predominantly did a lot of sport for the police force. I played football for the Kent Police. I ran athletics for the Kent Police, and I also did competition lifesaving. Unfortunately, I sustained a very nasty accident that stopped me from playing football anymore, which meant that I had to spend more time concentrating on my police work and my mundane everyday work.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I realised that I didn't really feel right to me. It wasn't the vocation that I wanted.
No.
So I left the police force and went and took my engineering skills from my school days and went into engineering. And I spent a year working in engineering. During that time, conscription had been, so I wasn't needed to go into the services.
Got you.
I felt that people were saying, oh, you people are lucky you didn't need to go into the services. We all had to do this, we had to do that with all the discipline you didn't have to do. So a friend of myself suddenly said, okay, we'll do it ourselves. And we upped and sailed to Australia.
Wow.
And worked in the copper mines in Tasmania for about 20 months. I worked in Sydney for 5 or 6 weeks on a big tugboat, building a big tugboat. And I then came back to the UK and back into engineering, whereupon I met my and got married and had the mundane bit of going to work every day and coming home. And unfortunately, that didn't last. So the mundane bit lasted, the marriage didn't.
Yes.
So I then became single again, carried on doing what I was doing.
Going back just slightly, the accident you had that stopped you from playing sport, was there a period of time where you thought that sport may have been something that you pursued? And if you don't mind me asking, what was the accident?
Oh, the accident was just I got injured playing football quite badly in my foot.
Right.
That was the catalyst. It wasn't one serious accident. What had happened, I had this injury on about 3 or 4 occasions, and it was long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And the police said, I couldn't just be off from a football injury.
Yeah.
One too many times. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So I then took some time contemplating what I really wanted. The point was, when I went into the police force, it was almost mandatory for the family.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly what I wanted. It was what my mum wanted. It was what my dad wanted.
Got you.
We had cousins who were inspectors in the police force and things like that. It was expected of me. And the point was, I'm not that sort of person. I'm very individual.
Yeah.
At that age, I probably wasn't mature enough to realise what was going on. And I followed the family line.
Yeah.
And did what was wanted of me, but found that it wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't. It wasn't my forte. my forte was animals, but animals, there wasn't any money in it, and I was aware of that.
Got you.
And so I carried on working in engineering because there was money. And
Right.
I worked my way up from the shop floor to being an estimating and planning engineer. I was instrumental in planning out the tooling for McLaren Grand Prix cars in their heyday, for the Concorde aero engines.
Wow.
Jaguar cars, our company got the award for excellence for 3 years running. So it was a very successful time.
Yeah. That's
The
amazing.
problem being my forte was animals.
Yes. So
And I was not enjoying this. I had a very nice house. I had a new sports car. I had everything. What I didn't have was happiness.
no.
And as I got older, I realized that you need to be comfortable in your own skin.
100%.
And I learned fairly early age that it was more important, as long as you were doing something legal and you weren't sponging off other people, to have a life that you were satisfied and enjoyed, and working your butt off in something you didn't like, just so that you could have a bigger and better car than everybody else, or a posher house or whatever. And as I got older, I felt that more and more and more. But I did stay in engineering until the company closed down. I was made redundant. I then carried on and went into further in engineering with a Massey Ferguson subsidiary, and became an area representative for them, which also was quite successful. But again, things move on. So several years later, the company closed down.
Right. So, if you don't mind me asking, which part? Because by the sounds of it, the things you worked on and achieved at the engineering firms were pretty amazing in terms of McLaren Grand Prix cars and engines for Jaguar. Which parts?
And the Olympus engines for the Concorde we
That's
worked on. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And which part of that? Because for a lot of people, working on those things are nearly a dream. So, which part was it? Did you just feel in your heart that it wasn't for you, or just couldn't do the mundane sort of everyday?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head then. Mundane, every day, getting up, going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, or for 9 o'clock in the morning, sitting at a computer 6-7 hours of the day, and a couple of hours fiddling around working something else out. 4 days a week, that happened. And then on the fifth day, I got to knock off at 2:30, and the weekends were off. It was, it was quite lucrative like that. It was predictable. A lot of people say if you get bored easily, then you're not really that deep. But unfortunately, I do get bored quite easily.
Yeah.
And when you're doing something regularly, luckily, in my estimating planning engineering, I didn't have to do repeat. But a lot of it, there's a basis. You work on everything in life. Everything is within the building blocks of a foundation.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And it becomes just fiddling, tweaking them to do whatever you do. I found that was quite restricting to me and boring to me, unfortunately. I got married, had a family, had a daughter, and at that time was doing fairly well in engineering. So we leased a farm at Chart Sutton.
Wow.
Where we had intensive stock breeding. It was the biggest rabbit farm in Kent at the time. We were breeding 36,000 rabbits a year. And obviously, when you're doing that, and we also had a wholesale egg business as well, selling eggs to the little mobile shops, etc.
Yeah.
So that was a side business that we were running. Now, quite a lot of fallen stock on the strength of that.
Yeah.
Which we sent to John Aspinall's zoo parks. So me being into animals in a big way, I didn't ring them up for them to come and collect any fallen stock. I used to pick it up and take it myself down there and spend time with them. And so I'd spend half a day down there,
Wow.
particularly in the big cat section, which was my forte. And I learned a huge amount at Port Lim, a huge amount about big cats. And obviously I studied it outside of being there. I studied it at home. I studied it on the internet. I studied it in the books. I studied it. It became an obsession. When my daughter was about 7 or 8, we went to London Zoo. And we were walking around looking at the zoo, and we got to the big cat section, and a guy came out of the keepers area. Yeah. I knew from John Aspinall's. We obviously exchanged pleasantries, and he invited me into the keepers area with my wife and daughter, and we had a cup of coffee, and we were behind the scenes and did all that. And I sort of was quite obsessed at that time with what was going on there. So when I came out from there and we carried on wandering around, they do a volunteer program. Mm. So my wife said to me, well, why don't you apply for to join the volunteer program? So at weekends, during the winter, after this visit, which was during the summer, they had a course which lasted all winter. One weekend, Saturday, I believe it was, every week for several months, on how everything works up there, from picking up a litter to feeding the aardvarks to firearm sections to, you had the whole thing. You had a complete training course.
Yeah.
So I spent the winter going up there, and I really enjoyed it. While I was doing that, I suddenly had this urge to, they used to use these, what they call touch trolleys, where they'd go out to various departments with a touch trolley and have skins of various animals so that people could touch them, and then they would be explained.
Yep.
So I thought, well, that's a brilliant idea. But being me, I decided I'd do a bit of taxidermy. So I thought, I can't be bothered to do taxidermy on a rabbit, test it to see how I go. That's not me.
No.
I'm going to drive a Formula One straight away from day one. So I went back to the zoo and I said, have you got any animals that have died that are, you're just going to
send off?
Yeah, give a send off to. So it transpired they had a wallaby and a slow loris, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So they skinned them and they gave me the skins, and I came home and I spent hours and hours and hours with my formaldehyde and all my gubbins, and I transported them into really lovely skins.
Yeah.
Took them back. I was still on the training course for a volunteer. They were absolutely gobsmacked. I also signed my name in the corner, made sure everybody knew who was doing it. And then we had quite a tragedy up there. They lost a jaguar. And so they called me and said, are you up for it? And I said, yes. So they actually drove the jaguar skin down to the house. Mm. And I did this jaguar skin, even to the point where the claws, I got them so that they would come in and out, and everything else on the tendons, I'd strip because they'd left the legs. Mm. So I had to skin the legs and everything else, but the body they'd skinned out.
Yeah.
And I made such a good job of it that even on the training course, towards the end of it, I took it up there and they had it on display.
Wow.
As to what I'd done. So I immediately favour curried, I'd
Yeah.
immediately made an impact. So when the course had finished, people are assigned to various tasks. You can go and help out and deal with the small mammals, or you can go and deal with the primates or the ungulates or whatever. And all the sections there in London Zoo had various teams of volunteers, with the exception of the big cat section, which they were so snobby and elitist, they wouldn't allow amateurs to go in there.
No.
So I went up and saw them, and they said, yes, you can join us.
Yeah.
So I opened up that area for them, and we had that area. So during the course of the first year, much to the dismay of many volunteers who had been there years, I was invited to become the big cat specialist at London Zoo, public liaison, more or less, but because I knew what I was talking about.
Amazing.
So I took it up. It caused quite a ripple, but I still did it. So I became the big cat specialist for London Zoo. And that is how I got my kicks from the animals, because I was still working in engineering then. So I used to go up at weekends and work during the summer, during the weekends.
Wow.
I did that for a few years and got more and more involved until I became part of the London Zoo team, big cat team. At that point, we're moving on to the stage where this guy down in Kent here, who had bison and I think he had buffalo as well. Bison are buffalo, sorry. No, he had water buffalo. That's right, bison and water buffalo.
Yeah.
Had applied to have some lions that needed rehoming from Maidstone Council, who'd confiscated them from a circus at Detling.
Yeah.
Cross's Circus. They'd confiscated 6 tigers and some lions, of which they had 2 that they couldn't rehome.
Yeah.
So one of them they were paying for, they were sent down to Longleat, to Chipperfield's Longleat.
Yeah.
One they were paying for, the male, and then the female, I believe, was paid for by the Cats Protection League from this area.
Yeah.
And they were paying for their costs down there while they were frantically trying to rehome them. So the guy said he would rehome them. He already had a dangerous wild animal license because of the bison and the water buffalo. So there was one hell of a controversy, and I contacted the council, said I was with London Zoo as big cat specialist, and I would quite happily go and have a chat to this guy and see what I thought. Council sort of, I guess, did their checks and balances on me with London Zoo and came back and said, okay. So I met up and we went through the costings of having big cats and the implications socially and every other way. That duly transpired successfully, and we then got the 2 lions, but we actually got 3 because there was a third one. When I went down to Longleat to look at the 2 lions, there was a third lion there that needed rehoming, and it was already compatible with these 2. So we took the 3.
Yeah.
And we set the place up.
So if you don't mind me asking, how much you say you went through costings and things, how much would it cost to keep a lion, if not all 3 of those lions?
Well, basically, the major costs, I'm not up to speed with it today because we obviously removed our animals abroad over to India and Africa in 2002.
Yeah.
But back in 1994, I think it was, when these things were going on, it was about 400 quid or 400 quid an animal, I think, a month, which is 94.
Yeah, that's quite a lot back then.
So basically, the big costs are building the satisfactory enclosures, the insurances that you need to keep dangerous wild animals.
Yeah, you forget
because yes, exactly. You need a public liability. You need a personal liability, and you need a general liability.
Yeah,
and we had 3 of those at 12 million quid each. So that isn't dirt cheap.
no.
And you're very limited for who will insure you. You can't just go down the road to
compare the market.
Exactly, and find it. You have to go to a specialist.
Yeah, absolutely.
That deals with these things, who deals with zoos and deals with wildlife collections. That's a big expense. The other big expense, which fortunately we didn't incur, is feeding them.
Yeah.
Because they're, if you can work on the principle that a male lion will eat sort of 70 pounds of meat a week, a female, say 50 pounds of meat a week, you're looking at a cow, 2 cows a month, or 2 horses a month, or several smaller animals a month. If you have to purchase these, or if you don't have the facilities to butcher these animals, you then have to buy them buy the meat already pre-prepared,
which ups the cost
hugely.
Yeah.
So I would dread to think what it would cost today. I would dread to think, and then of course added to that, you have to have staff, or you should have staff. Well, staff today, even then, we were paying sort of 300 quid a week or something for a full member of staff. So it's very expensive, put it like that, very expensive.
Wow.
So anyway, in those days, when the first 3 came, Malcolm and I did most of it on our own. But then the Born Free Foundation contacted the sanctuary and asked if we could take a couple of lions from Tenerife, from a rooftop bar in Tenerife. And I sat down and costed that out, went back to them with those costs, and after giving it some thought, they agreed to them. Of course, the costs including having to build an enclosure, which in those days was about 30,000 quid to build an enclosure.
Wow.
And of course, get permission from the council, Ashford Borough Council, because when you have a dangerous wild animal license, it's different to a zoo license. When you have a dangerous wild animal license, you are actually, the license is for exact stock. If you got 2 lions, that's what your license is for.
Right.
You can't suddenly chuck another one in and say, oh, we got a license for lions. It has to be the specific numbers. It's a bit like firearm certificate, really, exactly the same. Therefore, every time you want to add, you have to then go and apply for
having more.
So we had to go through all that, which is not cheap.
No.
So eventually, Born Free, we came to an agreement with Born Free, and we built the enclosure. Born Free then sent the 2 lions down there. And from then on, it tended to snowball. We got the first 3, which we brought in ourselves, and then the 2 Born Free ones. And from then on, every few months, Born Free would call us and say, look, we need to do this, that, and other, can we do it? And of course, we said yes, so we applied. By that time, they'd taken over the cost of running it.
Yes.
And I then had given up my other work, and they'd employ me run the whole sanctuary on their behalf, but it also included the 3 animals that we had. And so the thing mushroomed until some years in, somebody came to us and said, why don't you think about transferring some of these animals back to their ancestral homelands.
Yes.
And obviously Born Free thought it was a brilliant idea because they're not pro captive animal anyway.
No.
Even though we got captive animals, we were just giving them a better life from the horrible conditions
That they were
been kept in. So what happened was we were offered an area of land in a place in the Eastern Cape called the Shamwari, which is this one, Shamwari Game Reserve. The opportunity to take 2 lions there. So we thought about it for some while and decided that, yes, we're going to do it. So the 2 original lions that Born Free sent to us from the Tenerife roof, we then transferred to the Shamwari Game Reserve. So they came originally out of a 3 metre by 2 metre enclosure into our enclosure, which was 70 metres by 70 metres.
Yeah.
Into Shamwari, 300 acres.
Wow.
So their lives
just
graduated. Anyway, that was the start of the thoughts that Born Free had. Maybe we should give these animals, by which time Born Free had several down there.
Yeah.
We should give them better quality of life by taking them back to their ancestral homelands.
Wow.
So we took eventually all of the lions back to Africa and the leopard.
Yeah.
All went back to Africa into smaller areas of land, but they were in the bush in this big game reserve. And they lived there. Constituted 2 things. The first and foremost and most important thing was the animals were getting a much better quality of life, which we were giving them. But secondly, the spin-off to it was it cost us several £100 a week to employ carers here.
Yeah.
Whereas in South Africa, the average wage was something like 40 quid a month. So we had about 3 of them and we were paying about 1/10 of what we were paying over here. So we could utilize a lot more of our money to do more work to rescue more animals or give more animals a better life.
Absolutely.
Well, that only left us down here in Kent with 6 lions, tigers, left us with 7 tigers. And so filing that for a minute and dropping back, in 1986, when the Maidstone Council had done this confiscation, they'd taken 6 tigers with the lions that we had from the circus, Cross Brothers Circus. They had managed in southern India, in Karnataka, in the just outside Bangalore, a couple of hours outside Bangalore, in the national park there. And they'd rehomed the 6 tigers there. They'd lived the rest of their life. So when we were left with 7 tigers here, we went back to the people in Bangalore, the Forestry Commission, and said, we have 7 tigers. Could we rehome them? We'll stand the costs. And they, of course, said yes. And so it took a couple of years or a year or so to get everything organised. But we did actually manage to rehome 6 of them. 1, unfortunately, had died of cancer in the meantime.
Yeah.
But 6 of them we managed to rehome back in India. Again, the same thing. It was much more expensive in India than Africa, but much cheaper than here.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we had more money to spend on doing more good works. And that is where, so we eventually got rid of the sanctuary in Kent, which then I transferred to being the big cat specialist and wild animal care consultant for Born Free.
Yeah.
And I used to travel to India 4 times a year and to Africa a couple of times a year to oversee our centres, which worked out cheaper for Born Free, but
Absolutely.
I still had the input into
Yeah.
what was going on. And that brought me right up to my age of 76. I was still doing it.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately I got cancer and colon cancer and ended up having operations, etc. And about 18 months after I'd had my operations and I'd had to have a stoma and I'd had it removed and I'd got better again, I went out to Africa on one of my stints and found that it was just too much for me.
Yeah.
So then I retired and now I'm vegetating into my old age.
Oh, so it must have been a sad day to obviously retire, and obviously well done and congratulations for you for fighting the cancer and to sit here in front of me today.
Yeah, that's 7 years ago now. I mean,
Wow.
8 years ago the cancer was, and I've not had any problems since. So there we go.
Amazing. And you look well for it as well.
Well, I don't know. I'm surviving. I'm 83, so I'm surviving.
Wow. Well, you certainly don't look 83, that's for sure. You're doing
I
well.
feel it sometimes.
So going back slightly, and I know the answer to this, you went on a lot of the expeditions to rescue these animals.
I did all of the rescues from the time that I joined Born Free.
Amazing.
Yeah. Some of them latterly, after we had got rid of the sanctuary, we rescued them, took them directly to Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't do any more tigers. When you deal with India, it's much more politically sensitive. And whereas in India, there's always somebody that wants a little something out of it, you know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's much more difficult dealing with India than Africa, because India, all tigers in India, for example, are owned by the Indian government. They are, nobody in India can own a tiger.
Yeah.
Nobody at all. So at the end of the day, you're dealing with the government. So when we want to take our tigers back to India, we have to negotiate a situation where technically we are giving the tigers to them, but the agreement we make is that we stay custody, care and control of the animals. So therefore their lives don't change. But technically we did walk a very fine line and the government were very good with us, but it is quite a difficult thing. Now, in South Africa, there are a lot of private game reserves, and Shamwari being one. And when you're dealing with private game reserves, they obviously have to adhere to regulations the same as we did in the UK. When we bring animals to a specific game reserve, they can't be released into the wild. That's the first thing that people must understand. We can't take a lion from England and release it into the wild in South Africa. Although the game reserve is the wild, it's huge. Shamwari is 25,000 hectares.
Wow.
So that's 60,000 acres.
And is all of that fenced?
Yeah.
Wow.
All game reserves in South Africa are fenced. Doesn't matter how big they are. Even Addo, which is about the 4th biggest game reserve, which is the size of Wales, has got, the sea is a fair bit of it. But where it's not the sea, it is actually fenced, even though it's ginormous.
Yeah.
There is nothing where lions can roam around in South Africa outside of a designated area, even though that designated area is huge.
Yeah.
They cannot get outside of it. Leopards slightly different because they can jump over the fences. So leopards do roam around. You do have to be a bit more careful. And kudu can jump over 10-foot, 6 or 8 foot, 9 foot fences easily.
Wow.
But lions are definitely contained, and so are elephants. You have to go to Kenya, where you see the more the huge national parks around Nairobi, where they can actually, if they wanted to, can actually come into Nairobi. They could come into town. There is no fencing stopping them. And on very rare occasions, you will get the odd elephant herd that will roam into the suburbs, and they have to go out there with firecrackers and fire them off all over the place, chase them back into the area. But you bearing in mind that area there is probably the size of Great Britain, where they're roaming around. So, but South Africa, they are contained in ginormous areas. National parks, for example, like Kruger, which is, I think, the 4th biggest in the world. Even in Kruger, they can't come roaming down the road into Johannesburg.
No.
You know, there is a way to stop them, even though Kruger is so huge. I don't know how huge it is, but it's beyond our comprehension. You know, I don't know if it's the size of England, but probably not far off. I think it's 4 million hectares or something. You know, what's 8 million, what's 10 million, 12 million acres.
Wow.
So it's big, but they are contained, yes.
Yeah.
So when we do rescues, the animals are not considered purebred for that area. This is the point I was making, or going to make. People say, but lions come from Africa. And I say, yes. Well, if they come from Africa, why can't we take them back to Africa? Hold on a minute. Where do you come from? Europe? So we take you back to Europe. But Europe is 27 countries. Africa is a whole heap of countries. Where do they come from? Forget about Africa, it's a continent. So the first thing they'll say to you, you say, look, I've got this lion, I want to bring it back to Africa. So the African people will say, was it a Kenyan lion? Tanzanian lion? Where do you want to take it to? Malawi lion? And straight away you could say, well, I don't know, it's a mixture. It's been in the circus for 300 years. They've been breeding and breeding and breeding and breeding and mixing them all up all over the place. So therefore, it can't be reintroduced into the gene pool. Therefore, it has to go. So even though we have this area of Shamwari, it's a fenced off area. And each of our lions, or pairs, trios, whatever, has 2 or 3 acres. That's all they have. Outside of their 2 or 3 acres, there are lions roaming around in 20,000 acres and more. There are wild lions. And the other thing is, if we let our lions out, the wild lions will kill them in 5 minutes, because these wild lions are tough. So there is always an area where you have man management. You can't just
release them,
do what you want.
No.
So that's another thing. There's an awful lot to it that is behind the scenes. You know.
No, absolutely. So, what is, if you're allowed to say, what are some of the conditions that the stories of these lions on the conditions that you've picked them up from, and what is that feeling like of getting a lion from the circus and releasing it into the Shamwari Reserve? That feeling of seeing that animal react to having that amount of space must be incredible.
Again, not as simple as one thinks. I rescued a lion from the end of a greenhouse down in southern Italy, near Turin. It was in an enclosure of 6 foot by 8 foot, but with a divider in the middle, which it had to duck under each time. So it only had about 3 foot each time. And it had been there since it was a cub, where the old boy had got it, and it was now 5 years old. And the excrement was this high, and it was fed supermarket chicken, they just chucked them in the bags. So it used to pass the bags through its organs and excrete them. So there was excretion. It was that bad that when we went down to rescue this lion, we were called to rescue it. It was that bad that when I went down to look at it in the first place, stood by the enclosure, and they said to me, "What do you think?" I said, "I think we need to put this lion down now, today." It was skeleton. I said, "It needs putting down this very minute." The problem is, this happened to be Italy, but so I'm speaking specifically from Italy. They said to me, "We can't do that. What we have to do is go to a judge. The judge will have to grant permission to put the lion down. Then we have to go to an independent judge, because we need two, and they have to be independent, and go through the procedure again to put this lion down, which could take a month." So on the strength of that, the Born Free members, or member who was with me, said, "Well, let's have a go at rescuing it." So with the vet, very experienced vet from John Knight, we then went back the following day. And to explain how bad the situation was, when him and I got there, we had taken supermarket bags and string, and we put a bag on each foot and tied the string round it so that we wouldn't be in the effluent with our clothes, which we've got to get onto a plane with. And we darted the lion, we got it out, and John said, "Do you know what's touch and go, whether we'll get it to England alive?" So anyway, we rescued it and we got it to England alive. We got it down to the sanctuary. It had never been in any area. We put it in one of the houses in a thick bed of straw. And the next day we opened the door. It took virtually half the day to come outside. First time it ever been on the grass. And the leaves were just rustling and it was shaking. What's going on all over the place? It was in a very bad way. We worked our butts off to just sort it out, and it just went downhill. And in the end, we had two top vets decided we had to operate on it. So we operated on it, or they did. And they found that it had got cancer of the spleen.
Yeah.
Now, people who have got dogs or cats that have had cancer of the spleen know that with injections and all the way, it is possible to keep them alive. Whether the right thing to do or not is a matter of conjecture, but it is possible to keep them alive and they get through it.
Yeah.
Well, we've got Tiger.
You can't.
So we did take the chance and they operated on it, and it was in a terrible state, and removed its spleen. We put it back together and put it into a recovery room, and unfortunately it didn't recover. So that was our biggest failure, and it was also one of our biggest the money that people had raised to rescue it was something like 400,000.
Wow.
So we had to, our team at Born Free had to contact everybody that had said, do they want their money back, or would they like us to put it into something else? And a majority of them put it into something else.
Yeah.
But that was the worst I've ever seen.
Wow.
And then other ones, we rescued 3 lions in a circus trailer in France, of which they weren't particularly in good nick. One of them was in poor condition. We did manage to take them. We took them directly back to South Africa. We managed to sort them out a bit and improve them.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, you were saying when you rescue an animal from poor conditions and you put it into much better situation, i.e. back more in its natural its ancestral home, how do I feel? It's difficult because once you take that animal from a situation and you crate it up and you transport it for 30, 40 hours in a crate, which has never been in its life, in 1, 2 airplanes, maybe even 3 airplanes if you have to have stops.
Yeah.
The lion gets to the other end. Usually we get to where we're going at Shamwari in the evening. So we keep them in the crate in the evening. We make sure they've got plenty of water. We put them in a very quiet place inside, out of the way, and we keep them overnight. And then the next morning, we take them to the release site. When you release the animal, the chances are it's going to be very stiff. It's going to be limping, and it's going to be or stiff-legged, or it's not going to be.
Yeah.
The other thing is going to be frightened. It's never been in the situation. Now it's out in the bush in Africa. And if the wild lions happen to be half a mile away and they're roaring, then it's going to start hearing wild lions roaring or lions roaring. So I don't immediately. I go into auto mode. The only way I can describe it is if you're a surgeon and some poor little child comes in with some terrible illness or terrible injury or terrible whatever, and you have to work on them, and you don't succeed, you can't save them. You've still got to go home that night. Now, it could be a Friday night when you're all going to a party with your wife and family, your wife.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to compartmentalize. A lot of people don't understand it and say it's not caring, but if you don't compartmentalize, you will go
make
off your head.
Yeah.
All 3 have had 2 people commit suicide who couldn't cope. So you have to have this comp. So when that lion gets to where it's going and it comes out the crate, I'm still locked in. Is it all right? Is its leg moving all right? Is that okay? Right. It's a bit stiff. I need to come back in 4 hours' time and see how it is.
Yeah.
Come back in 4 hours' time because you're in the bush then. You're not local. You've got to drive out into the bush. You come back in 4 hours' time, you have another look. It's a bit better. I mean, we've had it where we released some lions on one occasion in South Africa. It was a miserable, wet night, and we were having a party to celebrate that we released the lions from rescue. About an hour into the party, frantic phone call, you better get out here. One of the lions is not doing well. The vet and I had to go out, not in we were in nicer clothes because we're out there with his bag in the pouring rain, the mud, in the bush, darting this lion to get it down, to give it some antibiotics because the thing was not in good shape. You don't know when they're going to react.
No.
They were fine when we left them in the evening. We didn't just dump them out there and go off and say, let's go party.
Yeah.
We monitored them.
Yeah.
But at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, the staff, because we monitored them all night, the staff there all night, in their vehicles watching, suddenly called us and said, this is not going well. So you don't ever get to a point where, like the average person that says, that's done. Oh, my God, I feel good. You're on it all the time. You can't switch off. And then eventually, 2 days in, you switch off.
Yeah.
And then you relax. And you don't get emotional. What you get is exhausted. You just want to sleep and you just want to rest and you just want to think, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, you're thinking, right, where's the next one?
Yeah.
It's a way of life. It's not a job. It's a way of life. And the amount of people that say to me, or used to say to me, God, you've got the most amazing job. I'd love to do it. A couple of occasions we've people have come with us
Mm.
who have actually paid a lot of money to come with us. They don't know whether they're on their backsides or not by the time the days are over.
Wow.
Because I can leave my home to go down to Europe to pick up, or go to Cyprus, where I picked up 3 leopards.
Yeah.
You go from here to Gatwick. You go from Gatwick to Cyprus. I can't remember where we went to. It wasn't Nicosia, but anyway, Cyprus. Then we had to spend the rest of the day sorting out what we were going to do the next day. So we do get a night's sleep. Then we rescue the leopards. Then we have to put them on a plane. Then we have to fly them back to Heathrow. Then we have to spend time in Heathrow. Then we have to fly them to Nairobi in Kenya. Then we have to fly them from Nairobi, Cape Town. Then we have to fly them from Cape Town or drive them, whichever, from Cape Town, another 12, 13-hour drive down to Shamwari. Or we fly, which is nearly 2 hours.
Wow.
Sometimes you go 3 days with no bed. You don't go to bed for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
It's not, I'd love to do it. You are walking dead by the time you get there.
Yeah.
You're exhausted.
Absolutely.
I mean, on one occasion we we'd hired small planes to take these, I think it was 2 lions from Cape Town down to Shamwari. And we'd hired small planes because Shamwari has a landing strip. So instead of going down to Port Elizabeth and then driving 50 miles to Shamwari, we could fly directly from from Johannesburg straight down to Shamwari, land on the landing strip. We're already there, so we would unload them in the trucks, take them down to where we left. So the 2 planes are there because they need 2 planes because they're only tiny.
Yeah.
We put one crate into one plane and we can't get the other one in, it's too tall. So we're stuck. Yeah. So we had to hire a lorry. So we hired this lorry. This guy, local guy who was driving this lorry, turned up. John, the vet, who was with me, was feeling awful. He got flu. So he was feeling like absolute crap. I was quite tired. And this guy turns up, hadn't been to bed for 2 days. And he's driving a lorry for 13 hours. So he drove for about 3/4 of an hour to get us out of Johannesburg. And John said, he can't drive anymore. He's going to kill us all. So John said, I'll drive. So John got in the truck and he drove for about an hour and a half. Well, he's exhausted. He's got flu. Yeah. So I drove 10 hours through the night down. So John and him went to sleep. And I drove the bloody great lorry all the way down to Shamwari through the night. Already knackered, but somebody had to keep going. Yeah. And then we met the plane. Well, the plane had already landed the night before and unloaded the lion, and then we came down and got there the next day. Yeah. So that's the sort of life that you lead. It's tough, it's hard, it's ruthless. It's glamorous on the movies. Yeah. And I agree to an extent that when you sit back and you look at it and you think, God, it's a glamorous life I lead. Yeah. Yeah, it is. But it's something that you have to
It's a lifestyle.
live.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. Everybody loves furry creatures. Everybody loves stripy creatures and spotty creatures and furry creatures. They all love them and they all get to, treat them in their own little way, and they think that's the way they work. It doesn't work like that. When you're dealing with creatures that are totally different, when you're dealing with big cats, which is my speciality, you're dealing with a time bomb. Yeah. And at any time it can go off, and if it goes off in your face, you're in real trouble. So there's no time you can relax. There is no time you can. And the other problem with them is they don't take anesthesia well. No. They die very easily. Cats die very easily. They're not like dogs or bears, or anything like that. They'll snore their way through anything. They're very, very sensitive. You
Yeah.
can overdose them, they can react, and you can have a lot of problems. And so your adrenaline from the time the dart, the vet hits that first animal with a dart, even though when we put them in the crates, we reverse the anesthesia because we make sure they're awake before we move anything. Years ago, they didn't. Then half the animals, when they were dead because they'd swallowed their tongues or they'd, fallen in a position where they couldn't breathe while they were unconscious. But no, you wake the animal up and make sure it's wide awake. But you still don't know whether it will react an hour later.
Yeah.
And once you get it into the aeroplane, it's in the hold. Now, years ago, when Britannia Airways used to bring our animals back from Europe, they used to leave one of their hold dustbin bag things that drops into the hold where they're feeding the people. They just chuck it all in this big bag. They always used to leave one without a bag in it, in where they serve the food in their little. And John and I could get our torches. We could lift the hatch up. We could crawl down on top of everybody's bags, and we'd crawl over all the bags until we got to them. And then with our torches, we could actually give them water and we could do things in the hold. Things changed a lot when they started locking things up after the terror, that idiot shoe bomber thing. But also it changed because instead of them doing that latterly, they suddenly realised that was a pretty messy sort of way of doing things for the airline to have these big, like hop sack poke type bags full of rubbish that somebody had to go in and get out without tearing and pull them out. So they then slid plastic boxes, and they chuck them down there. Well, the problem with that is that it was almost, they'd always now they did have a door in the plastic box, but it was always locked from the outside.
Yeah.
So if the person didn't realise and they'd slid it in and you're in the plane, you can't get out the box anyway to get in with them. So we stopped doing that many years ago. We did used to do it.
Yeah.
We did stop doing it years ago. Now, when you're on a flight of 12 or 13 hours, you don't know what's going on down there.
No.
So it's quite nerve-wracking because when you get to the other end, I mean, we had an example of we took these 5 lions to South Africa, and one of them wasn't reacting at all well. And we got to Kenya, and we looked at this lion, and it was absolutely. And John and I looked at each other, and John's the vet, and I said, I can't see it breathing or anything. I know. So John said, "Yeah." He said, "Look," he said, "don't say anything. We can't disrupt the trip now. Just don't say anything. Get them to load it up onto the plane and get it to the other end." He said, "We'll deal with it then." He said, "Just don't tell anybody. In other words, your own team or anybody. Just don't say anything. But we think we've lost this one. But we needed to get it from Kenya to Port Elizabeth." So we fly from Kenya to Port Elizabeth, and we get off the plane, and there this thing is still zonked. So everybody's milling around, all excited, and the Born Free team of PR and all that are there.
Yeah.
So we said, well, we've got to deal with this. So I said, I will stay by this crate to discourage people coming and trying to film through it.
Yeah.
So I stayed by the crate. John then distracted people, and we spoke to Johan Joubert, who's the boss of Shamwari, all the animal things in Shamwari. He's a vet as well, but he's the big boss.
Yeah.
We said, Johan, we think we've got a dead one here. We've got a problem. Now, there was going to be a big do. So Johan said, well, we can't have a do. We've got to stop that. So he then called his second in command, John O'Brien. And he called John over. He said, get your bucky pickup truck, what they call them in South Africa. So get your bucky, bring it over here. We'll get this crate on that bucky now and get out of here. The other 4 we can load up onto the other buckies, no problem, and we'll go. But you go.
Yeah.
So I said, right, I'm going to go with him. They got everybody milling around. We loaded this crate up on the thing, strapped it all down, got in, and off we went through Port Elizabeth. So we got out, we get out on the highway. The bloody truck swerves one way, then it swerves the other way, then it swerves. I said, what's up, John? He said, that bloody lion. We pulled over, the lion was bouncing off the bloody walls. It was wide awake because it travelled badly.
Right.
So it was real travel sick badly. Well, of course, the fresh air at night, pitch black, driving through Port Elizabeth, this thing had woken up and it was bouncing around like a little rubber ball in there.
Wow.
So then I had to call the others, Johan, and say, Johan, this lion's fine. It's climbing the wall. So Johan said, well, never mind. He said, we're not going to party tonight. He said, just get these things out of the way quietly, not say anything. And I don't know, I'm saying it now, many, many years later, I don't know if Born Free ever realised the PR and the general, aside from the 4 of us, ever knew. We thought that it was stoned. It just wasn't responding to anything, and we couldn't even see it breathing. And you can't make a big scene in front of lots of people. You've got to move it. The idea was we were going to take it back, put it in the veterinary place at Shamwari, because they've got a big veterinary
facility,
hospital thing. Back it in there, then we could open up and have a good look at it. Just John and I and the vet nurse, But by that time, it was wide awake, going up the wall. These are the sort of things that happen.
Yeah.
So you can never, hell of a long way getting to it, but you can never sort of have that.
I think it's going to be
It's relief more than anything. You never have that the normal person has. You have a totally different view of it. And also my attitude towards animals is they're animals. This is their lives. We give them the best we can because they're forced to be in our environment. I'm not a Peter Rabbit person. I'm not your cuddly, petty person.
Yeah.
An animal to me is an animal which deserves equal respect to a human being and to be treated properly.
Yeah.
But treat it like a bloody animal.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I do what I did. And I did with the animals I did it with.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a question sort of along those lines, very interesting you saying that there were people's luggage. I'm guessing most of the people on the plane had no idea that they were essentially sitting on top of a lion.
Oh, yeah, they did, because what we used to do, because Britannia flew us for nothing, for free. And in the early days, it was brilliant, because I used to, when I went out to do recce's and things like that, before we even took the animals, or we called in, before all the expense was incurred by the massive cost of vets, etc. Britannia were brilliant before the days of the lock cabin, because it was up to the captain if I flew. So if I wanted to go somewhere, I don't know, anywhere, Tenerife, and was flying from Gatwick, and the plane was full, the captain could say, it's all right, we've got a spare seat in the cockpit with us, come and sit in with us. So I could go and sit in with the crew in the cockpit quite often.
Yeah.
And so I would sit in the jump seats, but of course all that flew out the window when they started having to lock the doors.
Yeah.
So Britannia used to fly us, because we advertised them. The crates had Britannia Airways all over them, and we would put it on any TV we did, or anything, news or anything. We made sure that they got promoted. So I lost my train of thought on that one.
Knowing that obviously there were lions underneath.
Oh yeah, so that's right. So what regarding knowing that lions were underneath, yes, because we were advertising it, of course the captain would always tell everybody that we were carrying lions for Born Free. Yeah, always.
So I'm guessing
not so much when we did long some of the long journeys to Africa. It did rather depend whether it's up to the airline whether they wanted to tell people. More often than not, they did, because the staff were always so excited to have lions or whatever, leopards in the hold. So more when they always wanted their photos taken with them. So when we landed and we took them out, all the crew used to come down and all gather around and be all gathered around the crate when we'd open the front up. So it was just a wire. So we'd always have that with the crew, and the crew would always be keen to become involved. Yeah. So more often than not, we did tell the public. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing the fact that obviously you were advertising Britannia Airways, that made the organisation of organising the journeys, because I could imagine it's not every day that a lion flies on a flight. I'm guessing that makes the organisation slightly easier, where you had that relationship with Britannia to organise the flights of these lions. And was there any, because I noticed you say spent some time in Heathrow, was there any form of quarantine once these animals were at different places, or because it was short stay, they came to Heathrow and then went to, for example, Shamwari or India, you didn't need to quarantine because
Heathrow's got it's got a very serious quarantine area even to come into it. Wow. When the vehicles come into it, the thing lifts up, vehicle comes in, it goes down, the next thing lifts up, the vehicle goes through. It's very strict quarantine in the UK in general.
Yeah.
It's very strict quarantine.
Wow.
I'll tell you how strict it was. I had to go down to Turin to pick up 2 bears.
Wow.
And I went down with my wife, and we towed we hired a John Page
trailer,
beast wagon, I think they call it, don't they, or whatever wagon.
Yeah.
And we put 2 crates in the wagon, and we drove from here down to Turin. And when we got to Turin and we did the job, we had to drive these back. So we were in the EU then, by the way. So we had to drive these back. Now, we were taking them to Scotland. They were going to a big Cairngorms Wildlife Park, I think it was, so they could roam around on the hills. We drove back through Italy, through France. Anyway, we drove back, got to Calais.
Yeah.
Because of this particular instance, we weren't wanting the publicity. Born Free didn't want to take the publicity for it, because we weren't taking them to one of our agreed. Although we were happy where they were going, we weren't. Well, so we didn't have any deals we could pull with people. Now, we had a big articulated quarantine lorry down at the sanctuary here.
Yeah.
If you remember, or trailer, the quarantine trailer.
Yeah.
So I drove with the John Page trailer to Calais. And what we had said to the authorities in the UK is, look, can we drive the big quarantine lorry down to Dover docks, back it up, go on the ferry, come off the ferry, and then back the trailer, put them in the quarantine lorry so that we could drive them up to Scotland? The British authorities would not allow that. So we had to take the lorry on the ferry over to Calais to the dockside, £500. I'm going back a few years now, probably getting towards 20. £500 just to pull up at the dockside and wait for me to turn up, unload the lions, drive it straight back on the ferry and bring it back to England, because they wouldn't allow us just to go on the ferry and unload them in. And their argument, it wasn't anything to do with their argument was the ferries turn around too fast and we would be blocking some of the space. So quarantine laws in this country are hugely important. And rightly so, of course, because we don't have rabies here. I don't argue that the quarantine laws should be strong.
Change.
And when we take animals from Europe to take to Heathrow, because we always go to Heathrow. Heathrow's the hub of where you can fly animals out. We more often than not do it by vehicle, but we have to hire 2 vehicles from up near Heathrow, quarantine vehicles. They drive over, we load them up. We drive the Land Rovers with them, but they have to be inside those vehicles.
Right.
You know, it's quite, sometimes it can be quite, since the tunnel, it's been easier.
Yeah.
To come through the tunnel. But before, on one occasion, picking up 2 lions from Zerberg. Anyway, down in Germany, down in the in Belgium, but on the Black Forest, the edge of the German border, the Black Forest, right down in Belgium. We were picking up these 2 tigers, and it was quite an aggressive rescue. It was quite particularly pleasant. So anyway, we went down there and we darted the 2 tigers and we put them into, in fact, I think one of the tigers actually walked into the crate. But anyway, that's some semantics, I suppose. We took these 2 tigers and we had them in 2 white quarantine vans, unmarked, all set up as quarantine vehicles. And we came back via the Zeebrugge ferry.
Yeah.
So we got on the ferry and we came back. And I was in the front van with the quarantine, obviously, driver, you know, the quarantine owner of the van.
Yeah.
Or driver. And there was another one behind with the other. So we came off the ferry and the chap waved us down here at Dover Docks. And he said, "What have you got in the van?" I said, "We've got a tiger." And he looked at me. I said, "What have you got in the van?" I said, "I'm telling you, I've got a tiger." He was getting quite irate. So then I hadn't produced the documents straight away, which was a bit naughty. So I handed him the documents. And he looked at the documents. And he put them back. He said, "Pull over there." So we pulled over there. And another guy came out and said, and the van stunk. This tiger stunk. We had to have the windows open all the way, really wretched in there. So he could smell it. He only had to stick his head near the window and he could smell the bloody thing. So other guy came over and he said, well, much calmer, and said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Oh, this chap's told me to pull over here." So he said, "Oh, right." He said, "What have you got in the van?" I said, "I've got a tiger." And I handed him the paperwork immediately. I didn't figure it. And he looked at the paperwork and he stuck his head in and he looked and he could see the crate through the bars at the back. He walked back and tried to look through the back window and he came back and he said, "If you think I'm going in there, you must be joking." He said, "Clear off." And we left.
Yeah.
That was the most comical one that I've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen it all in the years.
Yeah.
Great. There we go.
So what happened, if you can say, with the story with the monkey biting your hand? What
that's a whole new story. Now, that's going back. That's going back to the very early days when we were building the lion enclosure for the first lions. This was pre-Born Free. And we built the lion enclosure, but we hadn't got the lions. They still hadn't arrived. So that's a whole new story where they went to.
Yeah.
Because I sent them to London Zoo for a while. That's another story. I could go on about that one. But they hadn't arrived. And then on the television, Southern Television News, this pub, can't remember where it was now, somewhere around this part of Kent, had a lot of wild animals, which I can't remember the details of why the situation was created. But the problem was they had to get rid of these animals, and they consisted of a couple of raccoons, 3 monkeys, 2 brown capuchins and a white front, 2 Arctic foxes. I think that was all of the dangerous wild animal license animals. And then a load of geese and chickens. And Malcolm comes up to me, he says, there's all hell let loose, he said, on the television. He said, they've been interviewing these people who have got to get rid of these animals, need to rehome them, and they need to do it immediately because they've got to get rid of them. So he said, what do you think? And so anyway, I can't remember the conversation, but we decided to go down. So we went down to the pub to find the pub full of people, all vying to take some of these animals, you see.
Yeah.
I don't know where they come from, out of the woodwork. No. So we got speaking to the owner and we said, we're down here, we're from here. He said, all these people are there as well. So we said, can we have a look round? And I think one of his staff showed us around and we saw the animals. Malcolm and I had a chat and said, well, what do you think? Should we? Yeah, let's take them. We'll take all the animals. We were a bit naive then because we'd just got I was more naive than him because he already had a dangerous wild animal license. Then we'd upgraded it for the lions, which hadn't arrived yet. But what I wasn't fully aware of is you should have had the license you should apply for the license for the monkeys, for that.
Of course.
All the other animals that are the raccoons and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he said, let's take them. So we came back, we said to the guy, look, we'll take them. We'll take it all. So he said, I've got all these people here. He said, no. And we said, no, we take them all or we don't take anything. We will take all these tomorrow morning. We walk out of here.
Yeah.
Forget about everybody else. So the bloke ummed and ahed a bit and he said, well, okay. So we came back the next day and we loaded up with monkeys and raccoons and Arctic foxes and geese and chickens and God knows what. And we hiked them all back home. So what we did was we used the housing for the monkeys. We used the lion house for the monkeys. So we put the monkeys in the lion house. So we got a ready-made safe haven for them. And I can't remember what we did with the Arctic foxes, but we built, over the next few weeks, we built a big enclosure for them outside near his house, down by the house, a great big, with all the attributes that Arctic foxes need, because they're not like normal foxes, because they have to be kept cool, in the hot time. So we built the proper enclosure there. And then when we'd done that, we decided to build an big outdoor monkey cage at the back of his house. So we built that and we put the monkeys down there. I came there one day and bloody monkey had got out.
Yeah.
The big male. And he was on the roof and I thought, Christ, what am I going to do? We've got a problem. This is a dangerous wild animal and it's out.
Yeah.
And it's a monkey and he can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I thought the only thing I can do is I've got to try and catch him. He's smart. He's not
some
dumb thing you could, like a pig, which you could probably by putting food down, it would follow the trail of food until it got back where he wanted. He knows what you're up to.
Yeah.
So I thought, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do now? So the upshot of it all was he then ran down past the house, ran across the road, the drive, and went up a tree by the pond. Well, I ran after him with a broom, and I whacked him with a broom. He came out the tree and fell in the pond.
Yeah.
And I thought, Christ, he can't swim, I doubt. So I put the broom down, and he got hold of the broom. Now I'm on my own. There's nobody there. So he's got hold of the broom, and I thought, right, now I'm drawing him to shore, but as soon as I get him to shore, how the hell do I catch him? Now, the way you hold monkeys is you hold their arm here from behind, and you hold them back so they're like that, so they can't bite you. Yeah. They can swivel their heads. So I thought, I've got to get him over to that. So I got him on the ground, and I got the broom on him, and of course he was in a bit of shock by then. So I got his arms, and I got him up by the arms, and this arm slipped out. He turned around and went straight through my hand, and I've been crippled ever since. And he bit right through the tendons of my fingers. So I screamed. I mean, it was agonising. But once he bit through, stopped. So I thought, right. So he hung on to it. So I ran back with him hanging on to my hand. I went into the enclosure. Yeah. I blocked up where he got out, by the way, prior to all this. This saga. And I got him, and I managed to knock him off my hand. Well, now I'm in absolute agony. Yeah. So I get back to my car, and I go down to the doctors in Headcorn. Yeah. The doctor took one look at it. He said, I can't do anything about that. You've got to get to hospital now. So I drove myself. I had a Volvo, a state car in those days, manual. Yeah. And it was my left hand. And I'm changing gear in absolute agony and holding my hand here. I drove to the hospital, got to the hospital. They took one look at it and said, oh, no, we've got to operate on this. So they took me straight in and operated on it. I said, no, you're not knocking me out. So they gave me a local anaesthetic and tourniqueted my arm and then stitched it all back together. Yeah. And, God, Jesus, that was a nightmare, that was. Because I lay there and they stitched me back together. Yeah. And it did, I did have to recuperate for quite a while. And then I did get an infection as well. I had to go to hospital and have it drained and everything else. Yeah. And that wasn't a good time. No. And my wife was livid. And I'll show you how much sympathy I got from her. She said to me, you idiot, she said, look at you. And she was an assistant matron at the time, by the way, so she knew what she was talking about. And she said to me, you're a complete idiot. She said, that was a little monkey. What happens next time when it's a lion? She said, you're going to leave us with no husband and no father for their kids. So I got a real lecture from her, and I wasn't feeling well either at the time. So it wasn't a good time. Yeah. No. So that was the story of that.
And then the other story that I sort of know vaguely about is the story where, and I've had her on the podcast now, you had...
Oh, if you had her on.
You had Susan come out and do her healing on a tiger. Yeah. Or was it a lion?
No, lion.
A lion, and her healing actually this lion.
Well, it worked. I mean, I'm a very practical person. Engineers are practical. You've got to understand it.
Absolutely.
You know, if it's there and you tap it, it's there. If it's not, you wait till it is.
Yeah.
Yes. We had the first two lions we got from the nightclub in Los Cristianos. They were on the roof of a nightclub in a tiny little enclosure, male and a female, and we got them home, and we had them home for some while down at the sanctuary. And the staff were saying, oh, he's so much fun, this male lion. He goes and lays on his back, and he goes around in circles, biting at his back leg, just like your dog will do playing sometimes. And the staff thought it was hilarious, you see. So I went and had a look and saw it, yes, and I never thought any more about it immediately, but then after a little while, it became very regular that he was doing it. And I thought to myself, this is not right.
No.
This is definitely not right. This lion is has serious issues.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we initially came across Susan, and she had a friend. Can't remember her friend's name. They must have come to an open day or something.
Mm.
I really can't remember how they came on the scene. Most people came on the strength of an open day, really.
Yeah.
My guess is, and because I just can't remember how the knowledge got to them that the lion used to do this. Probably in general conversation, because we were quite open about the state of our animals when we got them. Anyway, Susan offered to come down, and she said she thinks she could fix this lion. And I thought, well, I can't see any other way we can stop it. It's not like pacing, whereas to stop something pacing, you can put obstacles in its way so that it has to wind through them, which creates a barrier, which we've done in the past, and then the thing loses the stereotypic behaviour, or it's one way to do it. This was something that I couldn't see what we could do. So I said, well, okay, you come down. So this particular day we'd arranged, she came down and my staff were there, and I'd got 3 girl keepers and a guy at the time. And they were all working out there, and she came down and she said, well, where's this lion then? And I took her down there and we undid the safety area, and she went into the safety area. And I said to her, the only thing you cannot do is touch that wire fence where that lion is, because it will go for you and it will bite you and you will remove parts of you and it will ruin your day for sure.
Yeah.
So do not touch that fence where the lion is, where it can get its teeth onto you or claws through either. So she said, no, that's fine, I won't do that. So she stood in there, and just to be on the safe side, our head keeper at the time, Jane, stood against the fence diagonally to her. And she put her hands up in the air and just stood there looking at this lion. After a little bit, it became the staff, you could see Jane was sort of sniggering, and making me go. So when I realised that Susan wasn't going to touch the fence, she did understand she couldn't. I said to Jane, so Jane is needing to have a good laugh. So Jane shoots off around the corner and absolutely ends up in tears on the floor, but laughing sort of thing, by which time I can hear her. So I said to Susan, I've got to go as well and see what Jane's up to. So I got ready. So by this time, everybody's in histrionics with this woman standing there looking like Jesus, facing this lion, which is looking at her as much as to say, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, we left her there. She was there, and obviously the novelty wore off after a few minutes, and everybody got on with their work, and I went back to the office and did my stuff. And then after about, I don't know, a while, Susan comes and comes into the office and says, yeah, I've done for now. She said, you'd probably be all right. So with that, I saw her back to her car and off she went. And I was, oh God, what the hell is going on here, sort of thing. And anyway, the upshot of it all was this lion stopped doing it. I don't know what to say, but this lion is not, to this day, I don't know, but the lion stopped doing it. Well, then after about 2 to 3 months, started doing it again. Mm-hmm. So I phoned Susan up and I said, Susan, this lion has started doing it so much. That's all right. She said, I'll be down. So this time we didn't laugh, to be honest, none of us.
No.
She came down and we opened the gate. She went in. She did her stuff. We carried on doing our thing. Half an hour later or so, I can't remember how long, and she came back and said, "Yeah, it'll be all right now, I think." And off she went again. And he never, ever did it again. For the
Wow.
rest of the time he was with us in England. And then I eventually took him back to Shamwari, and he had his lovely forest area. Never, ever saw him do it again.
Amazing.
So I have no more to say on that. I
No.
don't understand it. I don't know why. I don't know why not. I'm not getting into theories and conspiracies or anything else, but all I can tell you is what happened.
It worked. Incredible.
Yeah. So that is how I originally met Susan. Yeah.
Amazing.
And we have been sort of casual friends. I mean, sometimes I don't speak to her from one year to the next, but if we do bump into each other, we usually have quite a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible story. My next question, over in Shamwari, in the park, is there other animals wandering around in terms of what do the lions eat when they're in the reserve?
Do you mean what do our lions eat?
Yeah.
Well, there is an area that Shamwari is huge, as I said. It's about 20 miles long, by about 10 miles wide. Opposite the main entrances, it's been for about 12 years the world's #1 private game reserve for tourism.
Yeah.
It's fabulous, it's owned by the Saudis now.
Yeah.
But it was owned by a guy that I knew quite well. He owned it, built it himself, Adrian Gardner. He's been down to the sanctuary here.
Wow.
He built it and owned it, and he sold it to the Saudis.
Yeah.
For umpteen million. Born Free has a section of that, 2 sections. It has one in the southern end of just a few acres with, I think it's 5 enclosures, and then 5 enclosures and a few acres at the other end of it. 20 miles away or 15 miles away, whatever. It's the opposite Shamwari is a 3,000 acre area, which houses the veterinary hospital mainly, and a big bush area where if they have animals that are being overpredated in Shamwari, and they're sometimes a species like the cheetahs would sometimes pick on the ostriches and they can wipe the ostriches out. They'd always have a load of ostriches living in the 3,000 acre wild. They're living wild, but they're out there and breeding and everything else. There's no carnivores out there. There's nothing that can hurt them.
Okay.
It's a farmed area for one. It's the bush, but it's fenced to stop leopards, and I suppose leopards could jump fences and get in there, but probably. And then any gazelles or any of the antelope species that might be a bit more vulnerable are kept. They'll have a breeding nucleus in there that live wild but are breeding. And the Cape buffalo, they've got a herd of Cape buffalo there. Now, Cape buffalo get a bovine disease, which virtually all Cape buffalo in Africa have got, except with a few pockets. They have virus-free buffalo. So these buffalo worth, to buy one, even in Africa where buffalo roam wild, you're looking at probably 10,000 quid just to buy one of these buffalo. They are virus-free. The captive lions, which are the born-free ones, are fed fallen stock, as they were over here. But it's similar over here. All the farmers around, they get fallen stock.
Yeah.
We've got a transporter and we go around and pick it up. All the farmers around Shamwari area.
Yeah.
And they're all fed on the fallen stock. Or if with the leopards, you get monkeys that might get killed, wild monkeys that get killed on the road or something, that have gone out of the sanctuary because they can go over the fence.
Yeah.
And we'll give them to the leopards and things like that, or any other animals that have got injured. Within the sanctuary, we tend to try and leave it alone because it's a natural haven for wildlife. It's got a big 5 in there. It's got all the wild animals you can think of for Southern Africa. And they live naturally in there. You don't interfere with them.
No.
That's the way that works. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Is there any stories you'd like to sort of go through or add, or any words of sort of wisdom for anyone who potentially wants to seek a career similar to the one you had?
Well, I don't know about wisdom. I don't know that I'm that wise. But I think, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it's more difficult now than it was in my day to get into this. When I started out with this, which was a long time ago now, it was the various countries of the world wanted to get the knowledge of dealing with issues with wild animals. So I could go to India, and I was on a couple of boards out there, Indian boards, and help them do things and advise, for want of a better word. Similarly, a similar degree in Africa, but Malawi, I've done Malawi, Ethiopia, and South Africa are the 3 countries I've actually worked in. I've been Kenya and stuff, but not done any particular work there. The problem is now that these countries realise they need to train their own to do these jobs.
Yeah.
And particularly South Africa. India's always been a bit like it, but particularly South Africa has changed a lot in the last 15 years, to the extent that it's very difficult for a non-Indigenous person work. You could still go out in a volunteer capacity. The problem with the volunteer capacity, if there is one at all, is you've got to have money because you are spending it. And a lot of these places in South Africa now, if they're dealing with volunteers, they actually charge them to go out there and be on a course. Yeah. So you can go to places in Africa and learn to be a ranger, but it'll cost you. And the accommodation, it will cost you the training, it will cost you everything else. And once you've got that, you probably find it quite difficult to get a job. Or in my case, it's more difficult because they are now training their own staff, which I did. I trained Indian people in India. I trained South Africans in South Africa. So, I actually trained myself out of a job technically, although being older, of course, it didn't affect me so much because, I did it in the latter years sooner. But if I did it at 2021, you can get work in these countries, but you will need to get a degree in zoology, whether you get it from, or not necessarily zoology, ecology, or one of the ologies. You can get work with a degree, which you could get from the Open University if you didn't want to go to university to do it.
Yeah.
But you're not just going to say, oh, I fancy doing this and going and doing it.
No. That
is not really an option anymore. There are very few countries I can think of where you would get away with it. Like I say, South Africa's learning to, you can still volunteer there, but you're going to have to pay. So if you want to do 3 weeks volunteering in some form of rescue centre or the Rhino Rescue Centre or somewhere like that, you're probably going to be charged £1,000 or something like that to do it. The world has changed a lot.
Yeah.
bearing in mind that even if you're a fully qualified vet, that does not qualify you to work in South Africa or India.
Mm.
You have to go, obviously, you go out there as a qualified vet, but you have to go through certain procedures and courses there
Yeah.
as well, albeit that they're more or less just no major. If you are a vet, you can easily get a job in South Africa, but you will have to go through the courses to do that. And if you go to India, you probably would get a job in India, but you'd still have to spend some time doing nothing spectacular. It's not like learning to be a vet. It's just procedures, really, different procedure courses.
Yeah.
And then you get a veterinary license to practice in that particular country. When vets can't do it, it answers for the rest of us.
Becomes a lot more difficult.
Yeah. And nowadays, people are more aware of the necessity. You also have to be, how should I put it? If you want to get heavily into it, you have to bear in mind that it's not, again, as I'd said some time ago, all about the animals. You have to understand the culture of the people, how the people work, how they react to animals, what their lifestyles are like, what is expected in that country, and what your limitations are in that country, because you might see things you don't like.
Yeah.
And just bear one thing in mind. If you're, for example, in Karnataka, in Nagaholi or Banagata or one of the national parks, and you turn around and start shooting your mouth off because you don't like something, there's one of you, there's 200 million of them. And they will have you out of there faster than your feet can touch the ground, even if you do think you're Superman. You have to be you have to understand the cultures you're dealing with. Doesn't mean to say you can't try and turn it to your way, which is what I've spent 30 years doing. But I've tried to do it by suggestion, not demand or insult.
There's a way to handle every
You've
scenario.
got to be very diplomatic when you're dealing in a foreign country. And you have to also bear in mind that there is still, especially with the older people, not with the youngsters, but with the older people, there's still a spin-off from the empire. The Brits went here and told people what to do. They went there and told people for 200 years they controlled India until 47, was it, or something?
Yeah.
People don't like a Brit telling them something. What you have to do is you have to convince them by sort of embracing their ideas and trying to turn their ideas and getting them to think they're thinking of what you want them to do to improve things. And that's about all I can say about things like that.
Yeah. And what I found interesting, and it's happened with a few other guests actually, is what you did in terms of engineering was actually a foundation of what you went on to do in terms of designing parks and designing enclosures and things like that. And you may not have known it at the time, but actually it created what was a great foundation, I'm sure, for what you...
Exactly that. And that was one of the things that I did from some of the layman, the bunny hugger type layman criticisms that were leveled at me. Because I can remember on one open day, people were saying, I don't know how you do this. There was a group of people who said, I don't know how you do this. How can you do that? How can you go to these appalling conditions without getting upset and do this, that, and the other? And I said, I have to compartmentalize it. So when I'm going to rescue an animal from A, that animal is a unit. It's not a lovely little furry, cuddly animal. It's a unit. And I have to remove that unit from there and take that unit to B. How can I remove that animal from A to get it to B?
Mm.
What do I need to do? So I have to think about transport.
Mm.
I have to think about staffing. I have to think about, over a period of time, where can we make sure it doesn't overheat or whatever, and we can supply it with water. I have to think about what vehicle can get up
Mm.
that a normal vehicle can't get up to get to it. I have to add all of those things together. There's no point in me sitting saying, oh, the poor little thing, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh, well, I've got to get out of the track. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? It's no good.
No.
I have to cut all that out. Right, we have a problem. Let's resolve it. That is what I learned as an estimating and planning engineer.
Mm.
I
Absolutely.
learned that I have got to estimate something to the most efficient way that I can.
Yeah.
And I have to plan it to be executed within the confines of the estimated costs. So when I'm moving the animal, I'm sitting down. It's almost like playing chess. I'm concentrating on this. And when I get that, I need to concentrate on that.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, oh, the poor little thing every 2 minutes and rushing back to see if it's got enough water or it's got other thing. Doesn't come into it. I've got to deal with everything else. It's somebody else has got to look after that side of it.
Mm.
And then when I've got it to that point, now I was explaining this to these people on this open day, to which I got the reply from them, you don't care, do you? And me, unfortunately, I'm not the most diplomatic when I'm put in a corner and people are being stupid.
Mm.
So my answer was, oh, well, I've rescued 65 animals in 40 rescues. What have you done? By which time it was getting quite fraught. And fortunately for me, a lady, very considerate, because it was quite crowded in the tent at the time, very considerately, a couple of meters away, decided to faint.
Mm.
Whereupon one of my staff rushes through and says, a lady fainted over there. We've got to deal with it now. Get the first aid. To which I luckily said to them, terribly sorry, got to go, got a problem.
Yeah.
And got out of it. The point I'm making is the way people see it, that I don't care. Without me, nothing gets done. So don't say I don't care.
Yeah.
I find that damned offensive.
Mm.
And they couldn't have done it in a million years because their mindset is wrong.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how clever they are. Doesn't matter if he owned Boeing, or probably that would be the worst place to own, but British Airbus or something.
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter. If he didn't have that emotional ability to deal with it, you can't do that job. You have to have the emotional stability to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings you across as a little bit hard at times.
Yeah.
And at times you have to be a little bit hard, because if you don't succeed and you lose, and we didn't lose many animals, but big cats, when you transport them, you can lose them quite easily. We lost none in transit
Amazing.
at all. And we lost the one that I explained earlier on, which had the spleen
Removed.
Was riddled with cancer and it had a spleen problem. We lost another one about a year after we got it, which had got a problem with its circulation. It was on about 30 tablets a day. Can't remember what the problem was now. And we lost a third one in Shamwari after it had gone to Shamwari and been in Shamwari for some while. And it reacted badly to anesthetic.
Yeah.
Some while later when it was being treated for something.
Mm.
So in 25 years, 3 out of dozens and dozens and dozens, and none of them were immediate. We lost none on the day after or the day after that. So, I've considered it was pretty successful.
Good going.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. So with an incredible sort of life and experiences like you've had. Any regrets at all?
Yeah, I do have one regret. I regret that when I started on the animal journey, that I didn't join the Open University and get a degree in ecology or zoology. I would have liked to have got a master's,
Yeah,
and I'm probably capable of it because of one scholarship. So,
yeah,
but I didn't think of it. I thought of it probably 6 or 7 years ago when I was at the end of the time. I thought, why didn't I do it? Shall I do it?
yeah.
But now at 83, I'm not sure that I would want the stress of doing it
No.
to no avail because it
Mm.
wouldn't have anything. But I would have liked a doctorate. Yeah, that I do regret that.
Yeah.
That's my biggest regret of all.
And why? What sort of reason behind that? Just
Because when you work abroad, if you can stick a few fancy numbers and letters
Yeah.
behind your name or call yourself doctor, believe me, they listen
Yeah.
and they follow you, and it means, in India, for example, it means everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a senior consultant, or sorry, I was a senior consultant for Born Free. But in India, I was a chief senior consultant because it's all about authority. To show an example of that, the guy that runs Karnataka's forests, and they're huge, Karnataka's a big state in India. The guy that runs their forests is called the principal chief conservator. His second in command is the conservator.
Right.
The third in command is the conservator of forests for Karnataka.
Yeah.
Deputy conservator of forests. I think it might be two. Then there's the assistant deputy conservator of forests of Karnataka.
Right.
Then there's the conservator. That within the one area, there's dozens of positions, all meaning one thing: you are more powerful, more powerful, more powerful. Huge in India for that. And as I spent 15 odd years running the Tiger Project for Born Free in India. They decided I had to be a chief senior consultant. It's never been official, but it was over there. Yeah. And anything they wrote was to the chief senior. That's why I regret not getting a doctorate, so that I would have been beyond. Over there, it means everything. And because I spent 15 odd years running the Tiger thing for Born Free, or in Karnataka anyway, it does help. And now we're in a society. Years and years ago, I mean, if you were good at something, if you were a really good mechanic, you would fix a car or anything else. But if you wanted somebody to work on your Bentley now, he's got to have about 145, qualifications way beyond. But the other bloke might have been better. But you're not going to employ him because it's all about qualifications. And also now we've got a situation where lots of kids are coming. You see, they come out of school now expecting more than they did in my day at school. You came out of school and 3 parts of you would go on the land. We didn't have a tractor that cut the hedges. We didn't have a tractor that, not us, but there weren't tractors that cut hedges. There were few, I suppose. Tractors that did many things. So on a farm, you would have 12 or 14 men working. Picking hops, you'd have all the hop pickers come down. You'd have perhaps 100 of them if you had a big hop farm, like Whitbread's or somebody like that. But now, all you need is one man and 2 million quid's worth of tractors and machinery.
Mm.
And so when you come out of college now, or come out of school now, people expect a lot more. They don't expect to go and cut hedges on a farm with a brushing hook.
Yeah.
They don't expect to go, walking around giving pig swill to pigs out in the field. You go to probably Hadlow College and you get some sort of degree in whatever you're doing. The problem now is if you're in a position to give somebody a job and you're going to have 100 people come for that job, you then have to isolate as much as you can. So if you've got a job working anywhere here, for example, you might have to advertise saying previous experience essential, which means that 195 of those people have not got previous experience. So they don't get a chance. One of them might be the best person you could ever get, but you can't be going through 200 people. And that's the problem today. Whereas in the old days, the world was your oyster. You wanted a job and you set your heart on it, you'd get it. But not today. You can set your heart on it. I remember when we had the sanctuary, and I was quite in league with Aspinalls in those days because they used to lend us some rescue equipment before we got all our own. And I remember that they needed I think it was a PR person or somebody in that sort of area for their zoo parks. And I happened to be talking about it, and they told me that they had 300 applicants. They didn't even interview anybody. They employed an agency to sort everybody out, an employment agency to sort everybody out or to interview people. So at the end of the day, you've got one job and 300 people going for it.
Yeah.
And you can't go and make your pitch to the people that matter because they can't afford the time to see 300 people or whatever. They employ somebody else to do it who doesn't, in actual fact, when you think about it, have an active interest in that specific
field
company, or that field. They're there to pick out what they consider is the most qualified, perhaps 4 or 5 people in their interpretation of what is needed, which is obviously given by the information given by the employer. But so it's really hard to get a job now. But I mean, 30 years ago, you could go down to Aspinalls and say, you got anything going?
Yeah.
And they'd say, oh, you want a job? Oh, let's have a look. And then they'd have a chat round to you and they'd weigh you up in about 5 minutes and they'd say, yeah or no, as the case may be. And everybody else now, but that's not the way it works anymore, as you know. You would be fully aware of at your age.
Yeah. No, it's changed on the big front, really.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Everything has changed, yes. And the thing is, you also find when you get older, as I am, you find that you have your era.
Yeah.
You have your time. I bucked the trend by having my time for a long time when I was much older. It went right on, as I said, until I was 76. In the last couple of years before I gave up, I was really not embracing where the organisation was going.
Yeah.
It wasn't going down the wrong route. It just wasn't going down my route. And some of that is that I had reached the point where my ideals and expectations were different to the modern day ideals and expectations. Yeah. And if they'd carried on down my route, they would have probably got left behind or what, because obviously you have to work within the framework of the world as it moves on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it's like I can remember when we started to get audited for our impact on the environment. So it wasn't a government audit, it was an audit that Born Free had commissioned to see where they could improve their footprint, And I remember the first one that I saw was the mileage travelled by people who were doing the trip. It was 1,300,000 and somewhat thousand miles in a year. And I thought, crikey, that's an awful lot. That's ridiculous. Then I worked out that during that year, I'd travelled to India 6 times, which was 24,000 miles a time, 12,000 miles there, 12,000. Well, 10,000 miles there, say 20,000 miles. So it's 20,000 miles a time. That's 120,000 miles I've added to it.
Yeah.
And then I went to Africa a couple of times, which was yet another similar sort of distance. So you're looking at 150,000, 160,000 of those miles I travelled alone. Never mind the other people that work there.
Doesn't take long.
So, and that is only counting the long-haul air flights. That's not counting the fact that I drove down to Europe during that year probably 3 or 4 times. So you're adding Mickey Mouse bits, you're adding 1,000 miles return each time.
Yeah.
So that's another 2,000 or 3,000 miles. And of course, they look at all that. And now the big problem, as I see it now, is that they look at these situations and say, well, look, our footprint, and I'm not specifically talking about Born Free now, I'm talking about generally, do we need to travel to this place or that place? People who I would say are office bound and are admin people, they're gone through school, college and everything else to become administrators, would say, why, for example, I fly out to India to the site. Why can't we get them to email in and let us know what's going on, send us photos, send us videos, generally deal with, which is going to cost peanuts, as opposed to a 10,000 mile flight one way, plus a hotel for 2 weeks, plus transport for 2 weeks, and all that. So you plus my earnings, which aren't. So an administrator will say, hang on a minute, there's no need for you just to go out there and see how things are going. And that is where the world is going to come unstuck, because they don't do what they tell you they're doing. They don't follow your principles. So if you're sitting in your office and you're saying to yourself, my principles are that we're going to do this in India, although that's not the way it's normally done, but that's the way I want it done with our sanctuary, even though I'm in league with the government, I want them to adhere to that. And sure enough, they will tell you they'll adhere to it because that's the agreement for you to put your money in there. But do they adhere to it? And that is where people come unstuck by having all this communication. There are times when you have to put your boots on the ground and you have to be there. I mean, I don't know how long we want to go on, but I can tell you an example of that. We wanted to upgrade the ponds in our forest areas of our tiger because the ponds weren't up to scratch. So we got quotes, and the quotes were for 6,000 quid, I think it was, to upgrade them. I'm going back a long time now. And so we agreed to 6,000 quid. When are you going to do it? So they said, well, we're going to do it here and here and here and there. So, okay. So then I go out there and have a look round, and we're all organising what they're going to do, and I come home. A month later, 6 weeks later, something like that, we get an email to head office that says, all the above is completed. police send remittance of 6,000-7,000 quid or whatever it is. So they call me, of course, straight away, head office, and say, Tony, this is what we've got. Send me down a copy of it. And I look at it and they say, is that okay for us to send the money? So I thought, I'll just ring up our vet out there. So I rang up the vet and I said, oh, by the way, I said, they tell me that the boss of Banagata Park themselves, the executive director and the chief wildlife warden, have said that they've upgraded everything to our satisfaction and that they need the money now. So he said, well, leave it with me and I'll get back to you. So he gets back to me. He said, nobody's done anything. It's not been touched. He said, nobody's been near anywhere. So I said, is that right? He said, yeah. He said, not a Scooby's been done. So I contacted Born Free. I said, I'm going to India tomorrow. And they said, oh, I said, I need to go. So I booked a flight. I do have did have a 2-year business visa for India. So I didn't need to get visas when I went out there. I had ongoing business visas. So I booked the flight and I I didn't even call my hotel, which I always use. I always use the Ivory Tower Hotel and the executive suite there, which they let me have for normal price because they're friends of mine. And didn't call them. I thought, no, somebody, because it's amazing how things travel in foreign countries. You don't know how, but they do. So I told nobody, not even the vet, that I was coming out there. So I got on the plane and I got up to Heathrow. And when I got to Heathrow, because they're 5.5 hours ahead there.
Yeah.
And the flight leaves at 2:00 or left at 2:00 in the afternoon. So I knew it was 7:30 over there. So I then called the hotel. And I know principals there. And I said, oh, it's Tony. I said, can you set me up a room from tonight, 12:12, the executive suite? And they said, you coming now? I said, yeah. I said, I'll be there in about 10 and 12 hours. Knowing that time of night, the gossip, hoping that the gossip can get her. So that's what I did. And I landed there. So the following morning, with this email, I drive up to Banagata, which is a couple of hours away, the wildlife park, the national park. And they're having some sort of inauguration there. And they've got the big marquee and all the powers that be, the principal chief conservator and all that. People are in there. So I pulled up. Nobody knew I was coming. Got out of the car, walked in the entrance. They're sitting at the head of the table because it's all very class. India is very class. And he spots me because I'm walking over to him. And he said, Tony, what are you doing here? I said, Mr. Rajiv, I said, yeah, I had to come over. I have got a problem. Get him a chair here. So he wheel up chairs and all that. And a plate because they're all eating. They're always eating. What's the problem, Tony? I said, well, the truth is, I said, I've been asked for the full remittance of the money for the upgrades that we're supposed to be doing. And apparently nothing has been done. So he said, what do you mean? I said, well, your executive director of the park has sent me so they're obviously creaming money off, you see. So I said, sent a email to my head office to say that the job is finished. I said, it isn't. And they said, are you sure? I said, yes. I said, I went up there before I came back here. I had a look for myself. I said, nothing's been touched. So it's in the forest. I went in the forest. So he said, oh, right. So the executive director was wherever they were, and he sent one of his men and he said, go and get the executive director now and the chief warden, chief ranger. So they came up and I was sitting next to him and they were standing in front of the table. And he said, we have a problem here. He said, demanded all the money for work that you haven't started. You've done nothing. And you've made demands for the whole thing, telling Born Free that the job's been finished and it hasn't been started. And the executive director said, well, I think there's a misunderstanding. No, that's not, because they didn't expect me there. They were shocked when they saw me sitting there. No, there's been a misunderstanding. Surely it'd been a misunderstanding. By which time I'd got the thing under the table. So I just slid it to him and just pushed it against his hand, and he looked down and he saw it and he took it. He said, then what's this? And all hell let loose. Absolutely tore them apart. And he said to me, when are you leaving? I said, well, I should be here for a week, 7 days, as I've now come out here at least. He looked at them, he said, you've got 7 days to finish it. Yeah, just like that. So the point of this story is that they would have got the money. The job would never have been done if I hadn't have been there. And we are very naive if we think that we can sit in the UK with our little rescue centres and everything else around the world, mainly not understanding their cultures, not understanding what the way they live, not understanding the way they learn, they earn what they earn, not understanding the corruption, not understanding anything, and we can control it with a switchboard because you won't. You might as well print money and give it to them. You have to be able to go out there. You've got to create the footprint.
And the relationships as well.
Sad. Yeah, and the relationships, of course, as well. Yes, particularly the relationships. You cannot create a relationship until you've gone and had a couple of beers and a meal with somebody.
No,
and I can't live or work in the environment of today because I'm not that trusting. So I'm actually glad that I'm at my age. Let the rest of them worry about it now. I've done my bit.
I know it's potentially a very scary future, I think, for my generation or the upcoming generation.
Well, I've tried to analyse that. I think tried to analyse everything. That's the trouble with my job. I think that people that have grown up in, particularly we'll say the new generation that's been born today, and don't know any different any more than I knew in my generation from the previous generation. My grandfathers, they didn't have cars or anything. They were all on horse and carts. It was 130, 140 years ago.
Yeah.
They probably only saw the odd car driving around where they come from. And they'll all be, driving around on horse and carts. So I think it's generational. I think you grow up, the generation you grow up in, you're comfortable in.
Yeah.
Whereas we're not. And when people like yourself who are much younger talk to people like me, you hear what we have to say, then you probably think, and then you think deeply about your generation. But if you weren't interacting with people like your granddad and me and other people of, a different age group, you probably wouldn't think like that. You would be quite happy in your little bubble.
Yeah.
And that's how we all are.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I travelled abroad. I mean, I missed out a huge chunk of my travels because I did tell you that I worked in Tasmania, didn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem once you start travelling is it's hard to settle. It's taken me 76 years before I said I've done enough. And for the last 7 years, I've been happy and I love being at home. And somebody says to me, hey, come on, we'll go on safari in South Africa. I'd say, go on safari on your own. I don't want to. I've done 100 safaris.
Yeah.
But if I was in my 60s, 50s, I'd say, okay, yeah, we'll do 101.
Yeah. Let's go.
You know what I mean? There comes a point when you know that your era is past, and your era now is running what you're doing, and like we're sitting here doing a podcast. We didn't have a telephone when I was growing up. Didn't even have electricity, as I'd said earlier. And here we're sitting here with all these electronic gadgets bouncing up and down and doing things. You know, what about the next generation?
Yeah.
They'll look at these microphones we got in front of us and say, "What the heck are they doing? Are they in the Stone Age?" It's quite frightening. It doesn't pay to think too much.
No, and I think it's changing now quicker than it ever has.
It is changing, and of course the other problem is when you're educated and you understand that species extinction, for example, species became extinct very quickly during when the dinosaurs had the Big Bang or whatever they had that got rid of them. You know, they all disappeared in a trice. Well, not in a trice our time, but in a trice in world time. The thing is, where is the world going? Species get extinct every day now. But would those species still not become extinct? We are saying global warming. We're saying overpopulation. Certainly speeding it along its way. Were the species going to become extinct anyway, but over an extra 150, 200, 300 years? You know, it's we think so much now that we try to analyze everything. Everything we do is analytical instead of looking at nature and trying to just understand it.
Yeah.
In that context, forget about it. And then you've got the the thing regarding global warming. We can all get electric cars over here in England, and not that I would ever want one, but we could. Have you ever been to Bangkok on a hot sunny day?
No.
No, exactly. So what's the point of us getting electric cars? Because they're churning out more gollage out there. You can't even see Thailand half the time. It's covered in fog. And the fog is not fog, it's smog. All right, people will say you've got to start somewhere. Yeah, but not in my backyard. But that is the thing. It is. Yeah, I've reached the age. I'm sorry, I've reached the age now. Cynicism.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, no,
it's been an amazing conversation, and I'm really grateful for having you on. I think it's been a fantastic conversation, and I've enjoyed learning about you and everything that's made you who you are today. I've really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been an interesting experience.
No, thank you very much.